I was between wars. It was the time of the Berlin Wall crisis. It was during the Cuban crisis.
Welcome to Preserving Valor, a podcast dedicated to saving the personal stories of veterans. My name is Jay Vissers. This is the second episode in Air Force veteran Stanley Lubin's story. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 was a pivotal moment in the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. It occurred when the U.S. discovered Soviet nuclear missiles being deployed in Cuba, posing a direct threat to American security. President Kennedy ordered a naval blockade, and, after intense negotiations, the crisis was resolved with the Soviets agreeing to remove the missiles in exchange for the U.S. promising not to invade Cuba and removing American missiles from Turkey. It demonstrated the dangerous brinkmanship of the Cold War.
Cuban crisis, I remember that, and I thought we were going to war on that one. I mean, we were prepared. We knew exactly what was going to happen. We knew what we were going to do. That was a pretty touchy situation. We missed, a big one on that. That was a very scary time. And then the Berlin Wall crisis, that was pretty scary time too, and we were serving as a deterrent for war.
During the late 1950s, the Berlin Wall had not yet been constructed, but the division between East and West Berlin was becoming increasingly pronounced. Cold War tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were at their peak, and the threat of conflict loomed large. This period marked a critical turning point in the history of the Berlin Wall, setting the stage for its eventual construction in 1961.
Had we not had a strong military, Russia would have done like they are doing now in Ukraine, and they would have wiped us out.
For many volunteers like Stanley, this meant heading far, far to the north. For newcomers to Greenland, the weather might be shocking. The extreme cold, strong winds, and limited daylight hours can be quite different from what they are accustomed to.
We did not get an awful lot of snow in Greenland. It was so dry up there that the snow, when it come down, it would land on you. And if you went inside, where it was a little warmer, it would just evaporate off. It wouldn't ever get your clothes wet. You could stand out in a snowstorm all day and you never get wet because it was so dry. And I decided to grow a handlebar mustache. It grew because hair grew very slowly in the cold. It took a long time to grow it. And so it was just coming along very nicely when some officer saw me, and his mustache was not near as nice. And so he ordered me to shave my mustache. And it was towards the end of my stay in Greenland, so it wasn't that bad. But my mother even sent me mustache wax from Michigan to give it some body, to hold it in place. That's how I got the curl to it. The parka has the Wolverine fur going around the face, and you could zip that right up to where it was a hole, probably 3-4 inches in diameter, right in front of your face, and your breath would not freeze on the Wolverine fur. That's why they did that. It was a very nice warm jacket. And they also gave us snow pants made of the same insulated material. There was one time I'd wanted to take pictures up in Greenland. Well, we did a lot of photography up there. I had this little Minolta camera. It was only this big. It was that wide and about that thick. And to advance the film, clicked it like this. Somebody had gotten a hold of a roll of film from the guns
Gun cameras have played a crucial role in the American military ever since their inception. These cameras are primarily installed on aircraft and capture footage during combat missions and training. The footage captured is used for training, intelligence, and post-mission analysis.
It was a 16 millimeter film, which this camera took, 16 millimeter, only that wide. And they got a roll of this film that was outdated from the gun cameras. So we used that. We would fill our own cartridges and get 20 pictures off it. And then the guy from Detroit, from the drinking thing, he had worked in a photography shop. He taught us all photography and how to develop pictures and everything, black and whites. And so we'd use a wastebasket, and we'd come out at night, we'd have a wastebasket full of pictures. We would do the photography, and at night when, several of us. That was, but there was something else I wanted to say about that too. Oh, the one time I wanted to go take pictures of the basin like that. And so I talked to one of the guys, and he said on this DC-3 that they had up there, they had two of them up there. And I remember flexing or checking for cracks on the landing gear of this thing. He took it all apart, and then he put this red dye on there, and then you sprayed it with another stuff. And if it had a crack in it, it would show up a cracks all over on this thing. We couldn't get replacement parts for it. They just flew the airplane. And I said, "Can you get me on the crew sometime when they just go fly around?" He said, "Okay." One day he calls me and he said, "Come on." He said, "We're going to get you on the flight." One of the pilots up there, probably one of the fighter pilots, wanted to get a type rating or something. He wanted to fly the DC-3. Obviously was not a DC-3 pilot. But we took off and we went around the pattern and come back, and we come down and we landed on, our runway was 200 feet wide. It was 10,000 feet, so it was a long runway. For the day, it was a good runway. Come down on one wheel, and I looked out the window, and we're right on the edge of the runway. One wheel, and we bounced, and I look out the other. We go like this, 200 feet all the way down the runway, back and forth, until finally it lost enough airspeed where it just plopped in. Give it full power, took off again. What do we get in for here? And so he goes around, and again, this time he comes down, and he holds it straight, and he comes down, and he bounces, bang, 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 all the way down the runway until he runs out of airspeed and plops it in. Oh, this is going to be a long day. And so he kept doing that, and every time he got better until we finally were starting to do good. But then they also went and flew up around the Arctic Circle, and there's an Eskimo village up there. Thule is where the Eskimos used to live, and our government took and moved all the Eskimos, I believe, to a new village.
The Inuit were relocated with little or no notice in 1953 after the Danish government made a secret agreement with the United States for the land that they lived on. Since then, the tribe has suffered on unfamiliar coastal land and worked to get their ancestral home back.
Also, when I was in Thule on Christmas Eve, I was in the barracks. It was later in the evening. I would guess 9, 10 o'clock. And we heard two airplanes take off. Bang, bang. And they both take off with their afterburners. And we were watching television. And a few minutes later, come on television, it said there was an unidentified object approaching Greenland, and that they were going to investigate. And yep, here's the message. They found out it was Santa Claus.
Well, a few minutes ago, we were notified that our radar warning station at Thule, Greenland, is tracking a strange object, which was first detected near the North Pole, and is now on a...
And that was put on the radio around the world. That two of our airplanes took off and identified Santa Claus. And so every year after that, that's been on the radio, and I didn't catch it this year, but just a year or two back, I caught it on the radio back yet, that the airplanes took off and they identified Santa Claus.
I think he sees us. Yes, he sees us now. He's waving and he's laughing. We'll fly escort with him to assure him safe passage. This is Helper 1-4.
But I heard the airplanes actually take off, and 20 minutes later or so, they come back and landed. That was it. You know, living on the base like that, you knew when they took off, they were so loud. Actually, when they took off, they were pointed towards the barracks. So it shook the barracks a little bit. You get used to that, and it was a great sound. Enjoyed that every time I heard them take off. When I come back from Greenland, I spent 1 year up there, 1 year and 1 day. As we're coming back, the pilot, we go to land, and the pilot says, I'm going to make a circle around the airport. He says, it's almost midnight, just a couple minutes before midnight. And he said, I'm going to circle the airport, and that will give you guys another day of overseas pay. He says, you deserve it. He took 5 minutes and made a circle around and landed. And so it was 1 year and 1 day. If you come back from overseas like that and you don't have 6 months left, they will muster you out instead of sending you to another base. They won't send you to a base if you don't have 6 months. I almost got out 11 months early, really 5 months early. But they wanted me to stay another 6 months, and they would have sent me to overseas somewhere, Germany or somewhere. I decided I was going to get out anyway. I had decided not to stay, and so it was just do it. But then I remember coming back from Greenland, where it was August in Greenland, so it was the summer. We were having 10 degrees days, 20 degrees days. If we had a really hot day, I remember one day up there, the wind was blowing, and it got warm. It got 40 degrees or something. It was so warm that you couldn't hardly stand it. We sat around in the barracks in our skivvies, in our underwear, we had no air conditioning, no nothing, and just trying to stay cool because it was so hot. We couldn't go outside. The rule was that if the wind was over, 10 miles an hour or something, you could not go outside because of frostbite, and it didn't matter the temperature. That was just automatic rule. And so we couldn't go outside. We had to stay in the barracks, and it was just unbearably hot. When I come back to New Jersey, and it was hot there. It was in the 90s or something. It was really hot at the time. I come from 20 degrees to 90 degrees. Your body does not do well. You couldn't eat. Your body just really wouldn't accept food. Even drinking water like that was difficult because your body just really didn't accept things like that. It was a tough time. But they assigned me to the theater. We want you to go work in the theater, and they're going to hang a new big screen up there, theater screen. You got to go help with that. So I go there, and I start reporting for duty to help with this. And they said, it's all done. You can just hang out here. And so I did. It was air conditioned in there. Oh, man. So I'd go in there and sit in the back, and whenever I didn't have to go to somewhere to fill out paperwork or whatever, I was in that theater, air conditioned, to try to get my body used to an in-between temperature. So that's kind of what saved me at that time. But I lost quite a bit of weight then. And just because you just couldn't eat, you had to force food down. I go to the chow hall, see if there was anything I could kind of force down.
Stanley's transition back to civilian life wasn't very difficult for him.
It was good. It wasn't like Vietnam. It was back in those days that it was good that you had served your country, and it was fairly close after World War II yet. And it was a different mindset than what there was then in Vietnam. It was more or less like I was away for a job for 3.5, 4 years. And so it was, I come back and help Dad on the farm again for a while. And after that, found a young lady that wanted to say yes, so life went on. But it's not like coming back from war where you have all these experiences that things you should not see and do. And so coming back during peacetime is a totally different experience. Just because you're kind of the same person yet. You haven't changed And for me, it was a great growing up experience. I was very immature back in the day and didn't have life figured out. And this really helped me to grow in my life and kind of figure things out. After I got married, I worked at Oswati and Pratt. My wife, Pauline, said, you really ought to go back to school and get an education. I said, well, what should I do? And decided that accounting might be good. So I took every accounting class they had all the way through CPA. Did not set for my CPA exam because I didn't want to be a CPA. I wanted to be an accountant. And I took every business law class that they had, which was a number of classes. And I took every psychology class that they had. I figured learn why people do things, how they think and like that was important in life, which it really was. I did all of those classes and got a 2-year degree in 3 years or something. And then years later, they got a 4-year program. I went back and got my 4-year degree out of it. I went nights.
Did the GI Bill support you for that too?
It had run out then. And at one time, I had my wife Pauline and our 2 kids and myself all in college at the same time. I'm glad that I went in the Air Force and had that experience with airplanes, because when I was like 60 or 65, I went to get my pilot's license. Our kids at church, I was a leader in the boys group, and another guy and myself, we took a bunch of the older kids that were like 15, 16, 17 years old, because the program had kind of run out for them, and the kids still wanted to be part of it. We took them to the airport in Grand Haven once a week. The airport manager run us through the whole ground school course for pilots for a fee, of course, but a greatly reduced fee. I think we had 8 or 10 kids. And he says, it'll be just your group. Meet every week. He says, I will throw in 2 flights for every kid. And they won't just ride in an airplane. He says, they will fly the airplane. It will be just you and me in the airplane, and they will fly the airplane. 2 flights. So we did that. And at the end of the class, they brought in the FAA examiner, and he gave the official test. This was the real deal for pilots. And 2 of the kids went to become pilots. One, his father was a pilot, so it was natural for him to do it. The other one was a kid that he was always poking in the fire when we sat around at our campouts with the kids. And he was always poking in the fire, playing in the fire, not getting in trouble, but kind of on the edge. He went on to become in the Navy, a pilot, and he flew during Afghanistan. So I felt proud and very humbled by being a part of this kid going in the service and actually fighting for our country and doing a super job. And we actually went to his wedding, and a day or 2 before his wedding, we're talking to him, and he says, yeah, the day after I get married, I do my carrier landings. But how did it affect me? Long term, it was a good experience. It was a growing experience. I'm proud to be a veteran.
Even though his experience in the military was trauma-free, Stanley understands the sensitivity of some aspects of service.
I think people expect you to talk about every aspect of your veteran life, and that's just not going to happen. People during the war, there are things that happen they definitely want to put out of their mind. They do not want to be reminded of it. They do not want to relive it. And so I think that's, and people that have not been in the service, I don't think understand that there are things that are going to remain private, that you're going to take that to your grave. I haven't really talked a whole lot about my service to people. typically people don't ask, but I'm just reluctant to talk about it because it doesn't really matter. I served my country well. I'm proud of what I did, and I don't have to talk about it. I don't have to brag about it. It just doesn't happen. Be proud of your country. Don't be afraid to be a veteran. Younger people, support your country. We need people to defend our country because we're in a bad spot if we don't. Step up to the window. It's not a bad thing. And I think, make yourself proud of your country. You have to support your country. There's a lot of factions that want to take us down. A lot of factions inside the country that want to take us down. And you have to defend your country because the alternatives are not good. Look at Ukraine. And there's always going to be somebody that's going to try to take the United States down. We have to be strong. Step up to the window if opportunity is there.
This concludes Stanley's story of service in the Air Force during the Cold War. Thank you for joining us. If you're enjoying Preserving Valor, please subscribe and share the podcast with a friend. You can follow us on Spotify, Substack, YouTube, and more. Your support is crucial to the continuation of our mission. An unedited version of our interview has been submitted to the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. We look forward to bringing you more stories from American veterans in our next season. And of course, our deepest thanks to Stanley and the veterans who served alongside of him, without whom this podcast and many others could never happen.